This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some major update to share with you. President Biden's stimulus executive order could be in danger as 22 Republicans try to challenge it, saying it is not legal. When it comes to the student loan forgiveness debate, I'll play you a live debate on the Senate floor between Republicans and Democrats, and I want to get your opinion on what you think is the best thing to do. When it comes to other stimulus news, we'll go over the $500 checks that are going out in one state, plus direct relief checks update. Millions to get up to $3,284 soon, and I'll give you some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So is student loan forgiveness by executive order legal? That is the big question, because you would think that President Biden, before making the announcement for student loan forgiveness, he would know whether or not it could hold up in the courts, because at this point, nearly half of U.S. governors, all Republican, demand Biden withdraw student loan forgiveness. So there are 22 governors, all Republican, are calling on President Biden to withdraw his student loan forgiveness plan. Republicans, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, argue that Biden's plan will burden American taxpayers and reward an elite few. And Biden has previously stressed that the income-based eligibility of his plan is aimed to help those who need it most, and has pushed back on claims about the relief impact on inflation. So what is going on with this big plan? Should it go through? I'm going to give you the Republican perspective and the Democrat perspective, including Bernie Sanders, on the Senate floor, of why they think it is important to do this or not important to do this. Take a look at this video clip right here.
Madam President, have you ever gone out to eat at a restaurant with a group of people, but your order was cheaper than everyone else's? Maybe you weren't as hungry, or the restaurant the group picked was more expensive than you could afford, so you were selective about what you ordered. Then when the check comes, someone suggested the group split it evenly. Now, what's your immediate reaction? You're upset, of course, because you ordered the salad, not the filet mignon, or you drank water, not the expensive bottle of wine. You ordered what you wanted, and they ordered what they wanted. You shouldn't be on the hook for their cost. Sadly, Madam President, this illustration is far too real, as last month Joe Biden announced that he would cancel billions of dollars in student loans. Now, let's be clear. He isn't canceling student debt. No, he's transferring that debt to every American taxpayer. Now, a construction worker in Florida is having to foot the bill for the loans of a Harvard grad, which they voluntarily accepted for an education they received. So here's what Democrats are trying to say to that construction worker. You didn't go to college? Democrats don't care. You'll pay the debt of lawyers and doctors, and you'll pay for those who want PhDs in poetry. Talk about poetic injustice. You went to community college or a state school and worked to graduate debt-free. Tough luck. Joe Biden wants you to pay for the advanced degrees of the privileged few. Your tax dollars are now the money pot for other people's student debt. Of course, Joe Biden's plan doesn't even begin to address the real reason of rising higher education costs. That is universities' decades-long practice of unnecessarily raising tuition. As governor of Florida, I addressed that problem and challenged our universities to keep education affordable. Look at the University of Florida. Undergraduate tuition and fees for this academic year are less than $6,500, and it's the 5th best public university in the country. You'll get a fantastic education there. Meanwhile, at Harvard, tuition fees for the academic year cost more than $57,000. There are ways to make education affordable, but Democrats and elites aren't interested in those solutions. That's why Joe Biden is engaging in this reckless move, even though he doesn't solve the real issue and even though he lacks the proper constitutional authority. Everybody knows this. That's why in July of this year, Nancy Pelosi herself denied the president had such power. When asked, she said, quote, "The president can't do it. That's not even a discussion." Yet now the Department of Justice is engaging in interpretive gymnastics to co-opt legislation that was passed to help our service members in the aftermath of 9/11. It's a desperate attempt to stretch a good law well beyond its intent so Joe Biden can give handouts to his liberal voters in Harvard pals.
With a national debt of nearly $31 trillion, we can't continue to pile on more debt. When Senator Scott and I got here, Just a little over 3.5 years ago, we were 18 trillion in debt. We throw trillions around now like we used to, hundreds of billions, and it's on the backs of our kids and grandkids every time we do it. Today, federal student aid owns 1.6 trillion in outstanding federal assets. In other words, student loans. The loan program needs to be completely redone so that colleges are motivated to lower costs. This is an excuse to do the opposite. Finally, President Biden's actions are illegal in the first place. The president doesn't have the authority to cancel all this debt. And I'm hoping it gets taken to court, because what does it say again for future generations? Anyone that makes a commitment to take on debt and to shirk it with the stroke of a pen.
I think about people like my dad. My dad had a 6th grade education. He was a truck driver. He worked his tail off. I can't imagine what he would think about working hard every day, then being forced to pay for some other person's degree as a doctor or lawyer. He'd be beside himself. It'd be so unfair. It's not how the real world works. It's a Democrat fantasy land that Joe Biden is trying to turn into reality. People used to take pride in paying off their debts and working hard to see their commitments come through. Democrats want to destroy that and destroy ideas of fiscal responsibility. They want to forget that we're $30 trillion in debt. They want to forget that we still have record high inflation as a result of wasteful spending. And since my colleague wants to pretend that we're in this fantasy land because objecting to my bill is an endorsement of Biden's reckless plan and his unconstitutional debt transfer from the overeducated Harvard grads to the working class. As members of Congress, we should be interested in checks and balances and the separation of powers. We should guard the powers the Constitution especially reserves for the legislative branch. Spending $1 trillion with no government, with congressional oversight is wrong. That's not exactly how our Constitution was set up. This shameless decision to block my bill is just another example of how far Senate Democrats will go to appease the radical left. I yield the floor.
President?
The senator from Massachusetts.
So, Mr. President, I'm still waiting for an answer to the question, where were these Republicans who were talking about fiscal responsibility and what's fair in terms of transferring costs when it was the billionaires and the giant corporations who were getting a $2 trillion tax break? And let us remember, because I was here when that happened, even the conservative economists and think tanks were saying this is going to go on the debt balance because it is not paid for. No, at that moment, they were willing to say, but it's going to produce all kinds of wonderful benefits, which of course did not come to pass. But what about the example I gave? The example about the investment that we made as a country in our returning veterans. The fact that we invested so 2 million of them could get college diplomas, so that millions more could get technical degrees. What about the fact that the numbers show American taxpayers got a return on that investment of 7 to 1? This really is about who we invest in. It seems that what Senator Scott is saying is people shouldn't go to school. If you're in a family that you can't guarantee that you're going to have some assets to back you up, if you ever have to think about the fact that you might get sick, you might fall down, you might get hurt, and you might not be able to finish, or you might not be able to turn that degree into a high-paying job, or you might graduate at a moment when the economy is in a slump, what Senator Scott seems to be saying is, don't order off that menu. Don't go to school. Don't try to get a post-high school certificate in cosmetology. Don't try to get a certificate for truck driving school. Don't try to get a 2-year diploma. Don't try to get a 4-year diploma. That is not going to make America a better or richer country. That is not going to be an America that's going to open opportunities. And the next time Senator Scott or any other Republican talks to me about fair, explain to me what is, I would ask them to explain to me, what is fair that the daughter of a janitor a half a century ago could go to a good 4-year college on $50 a semester? Why? Because American taxpayers invested in those public colleges and universities. And today, that opportunity is not there for a single one of our kids. When you want to talk about who has college debt, instead of talking about the 0.3% of Ivy League grads who have college debt, look at the 68% of Florida A&M grads who have college debt. That is shameful. We need to be an America that's about creating more opportunities, not closing them off for tens of millions of people. I yield the floor.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr. President.
The senator from Florida.
So first off, my colleague never addressed the issue that this is a transfer of obligation. I mean, you can have a conversation about, what we should have done with regard to tax cuts in the past, but this is a transfer of obligation. This is a transfer of obligations that people that decided to go to school, and we should do everything we can to help people. But we're not addressing the problem here. I addressed it when I was governor. When I became governor in January of 2011, tuition in Florida was going up 15% a year plus inflation. I stopped it. We didn't see tuition increase while I was governor. And we became the #1 higher education system in the country, according to U.S. News and World Report. We solved the problem of the cost of higher education to make sure people could afford education. We did it because we invested, we kept tuition low, and we paid our universities based on 3 things. Do you get a degree, how much money you make, and what's it cost to get a degree? So guess what? All of our universities became more efficient and more accountable. That's how you fix the problem. This does not fix the problem. This is nothing to reduce tuition. This is nothing to hold our universities accountable. This is nothing to stop our universities from raising tuition.
Mr.
This does
President.
nothing to require our universities to make sure our kids get a job. This has nothing to do to make sure our universities make sure our kids get good paying jobs.
Mr. President.
So I'm very disappointed in my colleague that she would still not address the issue that this is complete transfer of obligation from some people that decided to go get a higher education to people that decided not to. I yield the floor.
Mr. President, I would like to ask if the senator would yield for a question.
Will the senator yield for a question?
I yield the floor.
So I want to ask the senator if I recognize you did. I want to ask the senator if he believes that the 68% of students at Florida A&M University that have student loan debt should never have gone to college, because it turns out their families couldn't afford to pay for college in Florida. Should they just never have tried?
Are you finished? Yeah. Mr. President.
The senator from Florida.
Absolutely. I did everything I could to make sure all of our students had the opportunity to go to school. We made sure that they could afford to go to school. And so I think we ought to, what I've said in my bill today is this ought to be done by Congress. And let's don't just do some blanket issue, transfer of obligations here. Congress should be doing this. This is going to cost us up to $1 trillion. And we're going to have people like my dad, if he was still alive, a truck driver with a 6th grade education, pay for some Ivy League kid to go to school, and that is wrong.
Mr. President, can I ask for a clarification of that answer?
Senator from Massachusetts.
So among the 68% of Florida A&M students who have student loan debt, I believe I heard the senator say he made it possible for them to afford college. And I'm wondering if he can explain how they could have afforded college without taking on federal student loan debt.
Mr. President.
The senator from Florida.
Well, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't borrow money. But what I'm suggesting is if you do borrow money, you made that decision, all right? You shouldn't transfer it to somebody like my dad, who had a 6th grade education, couldn't afford to go to school, didn't go to school. There shouldn't be a transfer to make sure they pay off your debt. That's a decision you made. You should pay it off. Now, if you have an issue because you can't pay it, let's deal with that issue. That's not what this does. This is whatever your issue is. Joe Biden says by himself, without any act of Congress, he gets to make a decision by himself. Poof, your debt goes away, somebody else picks it up. That's not right.
The senator from Vermont.
I am really delighted that my colleague from Florida is suddenly concerned about transfers of wealth. I really am. Because as he may or may not know, over the last 30 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth. Problem is, it has gone in the wrong direction. We're talking about the shrinking of the middle class. We're talking about trillions of dollars going to the top 1%. And we are ending up in a situation today where you have billionaires, you have large corporations that don't pay a nickel in federal taxes. And I always find it interesting that whenever Congress does something, ever so rarely, that benefits working people or low-income people, there is an uproar. Oh my God, you're helping young people. You're helping working people. You're helping poor people. What a terrible thing to do. But there is massive silence when you give gigantic tax breaks to the 1% or large corporations who are now doing phenomenally well. So if my colleague from Florida is interested in the transfer of wealth, let's work together and let's make sure that the working class of this country, not just the billionaires, get a fair shake. Let's help young people. Let's start canceling the student debt that we should have done years ago.
Mr. President.
The senator from Florida.
Well, first off, let me make sure my colleague from Vermont knows my background. I actually grew up in public housing, born to a single mom. I do care about people making sure you can get an education. That's why I did exactly what I did in Florida. I made sure people had the opportunity to get ahead. The 4 years before I became governor of Florida, the state lost 832,000 jobs. By cutting taxes, reducing regulations, and streamlining things, we added 1.7 million jobs so people all over my state could get a job. That's how people get ahead. You don't get ahead by just somebody transferring obligations from one person to somebody else. That doesn't improve, that improves a few people's lives, but that's completely unfair. That's not how this country was set up, that some people are going to pay for somebody else's obligation that they decide to pick up, and that's all I'm talking about.
The senator from Massachusetts.
I really do think about this transfer question, and I find myself asking, who paid for Jeff Bezos' yacht? Is it the taxpayers who said, now we, America's middle class, America's working class, is actually going to have to pick up the slack, and they'll be the ones who have to pay to keep the military. They're the ones who have to pay for roads and bridges. They're the ones who will pay for investment in science. But the billionaires can get richer and richer and richer and pay little or nothing in taxes. That is a giant transfer. And yet, none of our Republican colleagues seem interested in talking about that transfer and just putting a stop to the outflow from hardworking middle-class families over to the billionaires and the giant corporations. I
Mr.
yield.
President.
Senator from Florida.
I think who paid for Jeff Bezos' yacht is all the people that bought all those packages from Amazon. And by the way, if you do get one that says made in China, I hope everybody will send it back. I yield the floor.
So what are your thoughts on that? Student loan forgiveness. Should it go through? Should it not go through? Where do you stand with that? Do you have student loans? So Rick Scott mentioning that it's that the student loan forgiveness, the money is actually just being transferred to the taxpayers. But what are your thoughts? Let me know your thoughts on how you feel about that. Stimulus update. Virginia is issuing $250 one-time tax rebate. Do you qualify? So going on in Virginia, it's going to be $250 for individuals, $500 for joint filers. And this is going out between October 17th and October 31st in Virginia. And then direct relief checks update. Millions to get, $3,284 soon. This is going on in the state of Alaska. And the date for that, so this is that big check. I thought I saw the date. Yeah, here it is. Those who requested payments by direct deposit will start receiving them September 20th, just a few days away. And then paper checks are going to start the week of October 6th. So huge checks there. Yeah, wow. big checks in Alaska. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Belle. This is the tip of the day. I want to tell you the one thing that you should do. So when you have to treat people equally, and make sure that if you treat people nice, they'll treat you back nice. But that might work. I don't know.
Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate how I get straight to the point, give you the facts, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, today's Friday, homeschool co-op day. Basically gonna meet up and I teach the teen class, so I'm gonna be teaching the teenagers today for homeschooling. Anyways, hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully you do something fun. If you want to check out any of my other videos on my other channels, click right up here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.